half of the world's population. And yet, in 2021, women, after fighting for equality, equal right and basic right to have a decent life. Every year, 8th of March is celebrated as International Women's Day. Just one day out of 365 days in an year for half of the world population. Each year this day is celebrated more like a kind of tokenism. These thoughts ran through my mind as I sipped my coffee, wondering and pondering as to what change I can make as a single entity on this day. I drifted deep into my thoughts as I contemplated regarding what I could do as an individual to make my fellow women stronger. As I noted and cancelled out ideas in my notebook, I grew restless. Enough thinking. It was time to do something. I closed my diary and walked towards my bike. I drifted on the highways thinking. I knew exactly at that moment what I had to do. So my next stop was a chemist shop. It was time for me to play in cliché terms the role of bad woman. Even the chemist must have been confused as I bought a whole lot of sanitary pads. The men around me looked at me strangely, but I was on a mission to break these same taboos. I kick-started my bike again, and my next stop was the slum area. There I came across a group of ladies and teenage girls. I approached them and introduced myself. As the ice was getting weaker, we started the topic of menstrual hygiene and health in general. I was aghast to know that even in this day, they were using cloths instead of sanitary pads. I had a long discussion with that group over various topics. Having spent considerable time there and having removed a lot of misconceptions, I bade them goodbye after handing them sanitary pads. I departed from the slums with the promise to come back again to meet my new friends. With sanitary pads still stocked in my bag, I drifted aimlessly through the streets and highway when by the stroke of luck, I took an unknown road and arrived at an institution for the visually challenged. It was nothing but sheer destiny that had pulled me to this place as I got down from my bike and strolled inside. I met the warden in her office and apprised her of the reason of my visit. She was delighted and sent for the girls. I was soon surrounded by the girls who, although visually challenged, had a lot of knowledge about the world. I had a heart-to-heart talk with them about menstrual cycle, health and hygiene, and broke a lot of misconceptions and taboo barriers. I left them with sanitary pads and freedom from shame and shyness regarding their own body. Finally, I drove back home with a content heart, having made a difference in the life of those underprivileged and still living in the darkness of this patriarchal world. This Women's Day, I realized that we women need to do a lot more for fellow women so that our world is no longer restricted to just one day of tokenism in a full year.